أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. أما بعد. No one here needs me to tell them what kind of difficulties, what kind of challenges we are facing today. Our families, us as individuals, as families, as communities, and our ummah at large. These are very trying times that we're going through right now. And it seems as though each and every challenge that overcomes us, every difficulty that befalls us, every tragedy that overcomes us, it seems as though before we're even able to comprehend it, before we're even able to begin to move past it or to move on from it, another one comes and strikes. And this is exactly, subhanAllah, what the Prophet ﷺ said would happen. In a hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he says, each and every prophet warned his ummah about the problems and challenges they will face. And what I am telling you is that this ummah of mine, the blessed era is the earlier era. As for the later times, they will face calamities difficult to bear. Every time one trial comes, it will make the one before it look trivial. Every one that will come will make the one before it look trivial, subhanAllah. And if we look throughout history, this is exactly what happened. If we go back to the 2000s, when we think about how much we used to say and complain about our president back then, George W. Bush, and how awful he was, and how he could have been so much better in this area and this area and that area. And we thought it couldn't be any worse. Just give us anybody else. And now we look at some of the Republican GOP candidates and we recognize and we realize how much worse it really can be. And then recently the entire world was struck with a great tragedy in Paris, in France. And again, before we're even able to cope with something of that magnitude, a great tragedy of that magnitude, another one hits. And we may have all heard of the recent shootings in California on Wednesday, the great tragedies and the great loss of life that our nation is now facing. And this time that we live in, brothers and sisters, is a time filled with Islamophobia, filled with hate rhetoric is rampant. Unfair and biased media narratives, we see them every day. We live in a time and a place in which the Republican GOP candidates, many of them, they can say such bigoted statements without any repercussions. In fact, it sometimes boosts their polls. We have Ben Carson saying that Muslims shouldn't be president. They're not fit to be president. We have Donald Trump saying that we should have to register ourselves and have a special ID badge identifying ourselves as Muslim. We had a few weeks ago national protests at mosques all across the nation. People coming armed, people coming harassing and intimidating our congregations and our communities. We have recently a Florida gun store owner, where he puts a sign on his window, Muslim free zone, Muslim free zone. And when the CARE chapter over there, they go and they file a lawsuit saying that this is such blatant discrimination against Muslims. Haven't we been here before? Haven't we been down this road? And immediately it's dismissed by a judge. and a society in which we have a major newspaper coming out and the front line is Muslim killers, without even considering the kind of repercussions that's going to have in terms of inciting hate and inciting violence against Muslims and against other minorities. And as if it wasn't bad enough, then we have this recent shooting in which the suspects happen to be Muslim. So brothers and sisters, what we know for sure, without a doubt, is that criminals are criminals. And what is wrong is wrong. We know that when someone steals something, we know it's wrong. And when someone lies, we know it's wrong. And when a white male Christian, in the name of Christianity, goes and shoots up a Planned Parenthood center, we also know that that's wrong. And we don't have an expectation from our Christian friends or reverends or priests or ministers or pastors that we know. We don't expect them to go with them representing themselves in their congregations to come and condemn those acts, because we know it's wrong. And we assume that they think that they know it's a great tragedy, it's a great loss of life, and that it's abhorrent and that it's despicable. We give them this assumption. And us as Muslims, we also deserve that same assumption of innocence. Nonetheless, it's good when Muslim organizations, they come out and they condemn these things. This is what we need to do, because these hateful crimes against humanity, they're not what Islam stands for. And ICC here is taking a very clear place. And I'd like to share with you a few statements that this represents what ICC believes, as many other organizations have come out condemning these acts of violence. Islam rejects all forms of extremism as a matter of principle. This includes extremism of all kinds, embraced by any individual in ideology, in practice, and in action. Manifestations of extremism, especially violence, particularly against innocent people, are also abhorred. Any individual, Muslim or non-Muslim, choosing to engage in violence against innocent people is criminal. Bigotry of any kind, by or against Muslim or non-Muslim, is unacceptable. It is a clear contradiction of the Quran and the prophetic tradition. Islam calls for equality, social justice, and respect for human life. Islamophobia and extremism are two ugly faces of the same coin. One begets the other, they feed into each other, and it creates a vicious cycle that can only be broken by engaging the Muslim community. Vilifying an entire group only breeds more extremism. And so we all know in our hearts what Islam represents and what Islam stands for, and that these criminal activities are exactly that, criminal activities and nothing more. And so although when we do condemn these things, what I was alluding to before is that we have to also push back on this narrative that the media outlines for us, and sometimes we feed into it and we accept it, that we have to come and apologize for those actions. You know, recently at a meeting, a pastor, he came up to me and he started apologizing, saying, you know, I know in the past few weeks you had a guy outside protesting, saying hurtful things, insulting our religion, insulting our faith, stepping on the Quran. He's telling me these things, stepping on the Quran and ripping it up and tearing it apart. And he's saying, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. And I told him, thank you for the kind words, I really appreciate your support, but you have nothing to apologize for. He doesn't represent you. He doesn't represent your faith. He doesn't represent your congregation. He doesn't represent Christianity. He doesn't represent anybody but himself. The same way that any person that commits a crime, they don't represent any ethnic background that they're a part of. They don't represent the faith background that they associate themselves with, or any organization that they associate themselves. Their actions represent their own and nothing more than that. But these incidences, unfortunately, they sometimes create a sense of fear and anxiety in us. And it breeds in our community at large. Many people are fearful for their families, fearful for their children, what repercussions they might have to deal with at school, fearful for our sisters and our mothers and our daughters, what might happen to them if they're walking down the street. We're fearful for our communities, and we're fearful for the ummah at large, and what kind of backlash can come out of such incidences. And brothers and sisters, this is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He promised us when He said, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ, and on to the rest of the ayah. But the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is that surely we will test you from some things of fear, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lists many other things. And at the end of it He says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, and give good glad tidings to the patient ones. But the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is fear. And so sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test us with this. And the question then is how should we respond, and what should be our approach? There's no question and there's no doubt that we should be cautious, that we should tie our camel, so to speak, that we have to take every measure. Brothers or sisters, you should never be walking down the street, especially alone, just looking at your phone, texting, without being aware of your surroundings. We have to be smart about these things. We have to be careful about these things. But we also have to be strong, and we have to be calm, and we can't panic. We have to recognize that we can't, if we allow ourselves to feed into the fear and the anxiety, it might turn into something even worse. We might end up with a legitimate anxiety disorder. We might end up with a legitimate phobia. And so we have to take precautions while remaining strong, while remaining calm, without panicking, and understanding that the fear, we can do our best to be strong, and if we can't, then it's no problem. We do our best. And if by chance somebody wanted to stay on the down low for a couple days, that's perfectly fine. If somebody wants to go on Amazon.com and buy themselves a keychain pepper spray and attach it to their key, if that's going to make you feel more comfortable and make you feel more safe and feel as though that's something that you want to do, then go for it. But we can't let the fear and anxiety paralyze us. We have to be willing to be smart and also move forward. The question then arises, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with many of these things. And why does He test us with these things? And we have many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ indicating that towards the later times, our times now, there's going to be a lot of difficulty, as we mentioned in the previous hadith. But let's review a few more ahadith. The Prophet ﷺ, in speaking about one of the signs of the Day of Judgment, one of the signs of the Day of Judgment, he said, وَيُكْثِرُ الْهَرَجِ. There will be a lot of haraj. So the Sahaba, they asked, what is this haraj? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, al-qatl, al-qatl, people killing, people killing. Another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he says that towards the later times there are going to be people, they kill someone, they murder someone in cold blood, and they don't even know why they did it. They had no qualms with that person, they had no grievances with that person, they don't even know why they did it. One time the Prophet ﷺ was sitting on a rooftop in Medina, and he said, I see trials and tribulations, I see fitan, falling on you like a heavy thunderstorm, like the drops of rain, meaning you can't avoid it. And isn't this exactly what we see? Non-stop killing. How many? Over 350 mass shootings this year. I'm not sure if it's this year or in the last calendar year, but averaging one per day, more than that. Mass shootings. They try to come up with motives, but many times there's no motive. People are killing for no reason, subhanAllah, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. And so he gave us these predictions not to paralyze us, not to allow us to be inactive, not to make us hopeless, but rather to let us know that yes, this is going to happen. He's letting us know these things to console us when they do happen. We know that this is a part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't do anything random. That everything that happens is by the permission and will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come forward, brothers and sisters. There's lots of people waiting in the back, inshallah. Come forward. Come forward. There's lots of space. I see lots of space in between the rows, inshallah. Come forward closer to each other, inshallah. Make space for your brothers. So, we have lots of tests, lots of difficulties that we find around us. Lots of room on this side. Lots of room. I can see in the corridor, lots of room. So we have lots of fitnas, trials and tribulations around us. And so the question is, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala test us with these things? So actually in the word fitna, we find one of the lessons, one of the wisdoms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and why He tests us with trials and tribulations. So the word fitna, the root word of fitna is fa-ta-nun, fatana. And in this day and age it means trial, tribulation, test. But at the time of the Prophet ﷺ in classical Arabic it meant to examine something, to examine. And the goldsmith at the time of the Prophet ﷺ was known as, in classical Arabic, as Fattan. Because he was the one who would examine gold when people would bring it, wanting to know if it's authentic, wanting to know if it's real gold, wanting to know how many carats that gold is, what's the purity level, is it gold, is it real gold, is it not? And so he would examine it. And so what he would use to examine it is this, basically, he would put it in a hot fire, right, to test it. And so he would put it in this furnace, and this furnace was called fitna. Fitna. Why? Because it would test the gold to see if it's real or not. So this is where the word fitna comes from. Because the same way that gold is tested, what happens when it's tested is that the impurities are separated from the gold, and what you're left with is pure raw gold. And so similarly for us, when we go through fitna, when we go through a trial or a tribulation, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meaning to purify us and to test us, to separate us from our impurities, so that what we're left with is pure raw gold, so that the gold inside each and every one of us can come shining through. And this is exactly, once again, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Are there going to be people that would come and we're going to let them say, we believed, and they were not going to be tested? They're not going to be put through trials and tribulations? So we know that we're going to encounter these things. So what can we do? What can we do? First and foremost, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that put us in this circumstance, and He's the only one that can change our circumstances and our situations. So going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking and pleading with Him and making dua. Making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave us in a beautiful hadith, he outlined actually a specific dua to protect us from trials and tribulations. The dua is أعوذ بالله من الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. That, oh Allah, we seek refuge in You from the trials and tribulations, the ones that are apparent and the ones that are hidden. Similarly, we talked about not being fearful and not being paralyzed. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave us another dua outlining what we should do when we leave our houses. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever says as he leaves his house, in the name of Allah, I place my trust in Allah, there is no might or power except by Allah. Bismillah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Whoever says this, it will be said to him, you have been guarded and protected. So let's utilize these tools that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Prophet ﷺ outlined for us, and take advantage of them and allow these to be tools that we can move forward with. Again, instead of being paralyzed, instead of letting this, stop us from continuing to move forward. And so again, the dua, very easy. Bismillah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And this will be a dua that when we leave our houses, we'll be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will know for certain that He has our backs. And if something were to happen, again we know that it's from the divine plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a wisdom for it, even if we don't see it. Even if we don't see the wisdom in this life. We know that there's always, we believe in the akhirah, we believe in the day of judgment. Even if we don't see justice here on earth, we know for certain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will be no injustice on that day. What else can we do? The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, Al-ibadatu fil fitnati kal-hijrati ilay. That worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the times of fitna, in the times of trials and tribulations, is like making hijrah to me, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, to the Prophet ﷺ. Now nobody can make hijrah to the Prophet ﷺ anymore. We can make hijrah for the sake of Allah, but nobody can have the reward of making hijrah to the Prophet ﷺ. We can't actually do the act, but we can receive the reward by increasing in our ibadah, by returning and coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these times of difficulty. This is what is meant for us when we go through these difficulties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to return to Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to come closer to Him. There's an ayah in the Quran in which it talks about people before us, that they went through great difficulty in terms of poverty and hardship. And in that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that even the messenger amongst them and all the believers, they started questioning, started asking, Mata Nasrullah? When is the help of Allah coming? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, Ala inna nasrallahi qareeb. Surely, unquestionably, the help of Allah is near. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي لكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One time the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions and he told them that days are coming ahead where those holding on to the religion, holding on to their faith, would be like someone holding a burning hot coal. Would be like holding a burning hot coal. The worker among them will have the reward of 50. They'll have the reward multiplied by 50. So one of the Sahaba, they were sitting there. He asked, he said, 50 of their good deeds, 50 of them, or 50 of us? And the Prophet said, no, 50 of you. Meaning, we will be rewarded according to our circumstances and our situations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes that the Sahaba, as difficult a time that they went through, they had the Prophet ﷺ there with them, as their teacher, as their murabbi, as their mentor, as their counselor, as their supporter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes each and every person's situation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes that it's much more difficult for the sisters than the brothers, that they're always out there on the front lines representing Islam, wearing hijab. And many brothers are also recognizable, but again, those sisters would be rewarded accordingly. everyone will be rewarded according to their circumstances. You know, there's a saying that tough times don't last. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. Tough people do. And if we look throughout history, this is exactly the case. Every group of people have had their crucible moments where they were subject to different hardships and different marginalization. And many before us, they had it far worse than us. And many probably will have it after us. It's nothing new. And this doesn't mean that we just waited out 10, 20, 30 years waiting for this to stop. No, that means that we should push us to action. That we work to change this circumstance and this situation. We work and it motivates us to do our best to change the circumstances that we have around us. And there's many things that many experts on Islamophobia and what we can do to combat Islamophobia and what we should do, how we should approach this situation. And I don't know what they'll tell you. They'll probably give you a long list of different things that we can do. But in my mind, it's very simple. That the least that we can do, each and every one of us, is that we make sure that our community, our colleagues, our co-workers, that when they see us, we're setting a good example, representing the true beliefs and teachings of Islam, that represents the true teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That when we have good akhlaq, we have good manners, we have good character, that we have the best of ethics, the best of morals, that whenever someone asks us for help, we're the first ones there, that we help without even being asked, that we're cheerful, that we're optimistic, that we smile. We know that it's a charity just to smile in the face of your brother or sister. And so why is it, subhanAllah, I was sitting with the two Ammu Ahmeds now that we have, Ammu Ahmed al-Wais and Ammu Ahmed al-Akoum. And I was sitting eating with them, and they told, one of them told a joke in Arabic. My Arabic is very weak, I didn't understand it. But they started laughing out loud, and I started laughing with them. I had no idea what it meant. Because whenever people are, you're cheerful, it's contagious. When you smile, sometimes you might not get the joke, but you still laugh with everyone. When you see someone smile, it makes you smile. When you see someone optimistic, it makes you want to be optimistic. When you see someone helping others, it makes you want to help others. So goodness is contagious, and when we have this example of the Prophet ﷺ and we embody some of these beautiful characteristics, then and only then, imagine if each and every person, we all have different networks, access to different networks, at school and at work and at many different places. And you're the only one. There's no da'i, there's no scholar, there's no imam or knowledgeable person that's going to come and give da'wah to those people. They don't have access. You're the only person that has access to your network. You're the only person. There's nobody else that has the access to your exact network. And so imagine if each and every one of us, we went back and we lived trying to embody these characteristics, trying to be a good role model, so that when others see us and they know that we're Muslim, they know that this is representing, the reason that he's doing this is because he's a Muslim. So the question is, have we done enough work? Have we done enough work so that whenever others, media outlets, hateful individuals label us as terrorists, as whatever, then our co-workers and our colleagues are going to say, no, this doesn't make sense. I knew Aisha, and I knew Ahmed, and I knew Fatima, and I knew Umar. And they were at my work, and that's not what they stood for. They were good, they were the best of people. That is how we're going to combat. And this is the solution. This is one of many. But this is the simplest, and this is the most effective that we have. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us good role models for all of those around us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow those trials and tribulations that when we face them, that we are strong and that we are perseverant and that we are steadfast. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when we encounter those trials and those difficulties, that it's a means for our purification, like the gold is purified in that furnace. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the trials and tribulations are a means for our forgiveness and a means for our coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عباد الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك يا مولانا سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار عباد الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم وأقم الصلاة